When you get a demand letter, you don't respond with a demand letter from another advocate.
Hey wadau maze, kumbe there's a way you can eat judiciary money without even going through law school.
When you hear 1.7 million cases, even if you were to resolve 2 cases per day, at the end of the year you'd only resolve 700. Hizo zingine millions zitaenda.
We have so many people who would actually sign up for this, right? So in an ideal situation, if this catches on, it means technically, for a greater extent, the need for lawyers reduces. Ukweli wongo?
No, it doesn't reduce at all.
Our guest for this episode, Fanya Mambo Kinuthia, is a familiar face in the world of politics.
You see what's happening in Goma. If I was President Ruto and I was meeting this Tshisekedi guy and Kagame guy, so on, and they start telling you or playing games on, you just need to switch on the TV.
He's also a lawyer and the founder and CEO of the Kilimani Mediation Center, and that's the basis of this conversation, the opportunity that this presents na chenye watu wengi hawajajua.
Look here, we are sorry. Okay, I think there's a misunderstanding. Can we meet in the boardroom on Thursday in the afternoon? And you probably end up resolving what would have been an acrimonious 5-year battle.
I'm your host, Dr. Kingori, and here's another reason to stay subscribed to our channel. Kama hauja subscribe, this right here is another good reason to hit subscribe and turn on the notifications bell. Professional mediator,
Yes.
Away from what most people know you for, politics. What kind of patience does one require to settle beef? Okay, because that in my simple-mindedness, a professional mediator ni msewa wa beef like kuchunga nini. How much patience do you need?
I think that would be starting quite high. First is, I have told Kenyans, and I need to say, my name is Fanya Mambo Kinuthia, and I'm a lawyer by training. And I chose a line of law because it's a line of law that it's like a doctor who chooses not to go into theater to keep operating on people. So I'm the kind of lawyer who is not going to court.
Yeah.
And we help people resolve their disputes out of court. And that process is called mediation or arbitration. Kidogo confusing. Arbitration means that somebody is a private judge, that you bring your dispute to them, he's an arbitrator, and he decides you're right, you're wrong, and it's binding. But mediation is, as the word says, wewe ni Kofi Annan. You know, what do you want? And what do you want? And then you try to strike a balance for the parties. And it's for them to agree on what works for them.
You help them find a compromise.
You help them find a compromise. You help them agree on their dispute. And what now, then that comes to bring now to answer your question, then how much patience do you need? I've always told people that the most ignorant person about your case, imagine, is the judge. And unfortunately, that's the person who will make a decision. Yes.
The most ignorant
yes,
person.
When you go to that courtroom, the person who knows the least about your case and the person who knows the least about the characters of the people in court is the judge. And that's the person who will make the decision. So the judge knows the law, full stop. But
this
enough.
teaches you how to isolate your personal opinion to the facts from the facts presented to you. In which case, kama in the world of social media, I know judges are on social media, so you bring a case to them, they've seen the opinion, so they have to pretend they have not seen anything.
No, not really. If you've been married for 15 years, you know your husband through and through, and you know your wife through and through. And if you've had disputes within your family, you understand your disputes best. The person you're relying on to come and make a decision about the two of you has got 35 files for that day. But if you go to the courtroom, I've always told people, there's something called a course list. Unafika Kibra unakuta imehangiwa kwa mlango. A course list shows the number of cases that judge is supposed to attend to on that day. Some are mentions, some are pre-trial, some are actual hearings. So if that is what that judge has, now siju kama unaonanga hizo files, I challenge you to go to court one day. Just have your phone on silent mode, usifukuzwe. Nobody will ask you. Just go and sit in one court and watch. Analetewa kifile kinatoshana hivi kimezeeka, it's old. That's somebody's file, another one and another one. This guy has got 15 of those files. You think they are very passionate about your case. Your case is a file to them.
That means then someone would take that to mean that justice is not justice per se, because if this person, as humanly, looking at it from a human perspective, they cannot be passionate about your case, and probably passion is what you need for the attention your case needs.
No, actually what I'm trying to say is the best persons to resolve a dispute are the disputants themselves.
Good point.
So mediation takes the case back to the right people. It takes the dispute back to the owners of the dispute and gives the owners of the dispute an opportunity to stop now coming as combatants and to start coming as people who are trying to look for a solution to their problem.
Aya, takurudisha nyuma kidogo before we come back to mediation. You say an arbitrator is like a private judge.
An arbitrator.
An arbitrator is like a private judge.
Yes.
So it means in the judicial system, there are people empowered outside the system to solve cases, and it is to the same standard. Like if you go to an arbitrator, it's the same as going to court and dealing with a judge.
Okay, I'll say this. There are methods of dispute resolution. Many. One of them is conciliation. Conciliation ni ile mmezoea kwenda kwa pastor. Anawaongelesha, alafu anawaambia, wewe wailimu, naona kama wewe ndio uko na makosa. Ukuwa unaheshimu bwana yako. A conciliator will try to reconcile you, but will also apportion blame. Like tell you, wewe ndio unakunywa pombe sana, wacha kukuja late, or stop texting girls. When your wife sees that, that's a conciliator. It's a method of dispute resolution, okay? And then we have litigation. Litigation ni ile, boss, you will see my lawyer, you will hear from my lawyer. It's what Kenyans are used to. You have to file a matter in court and you want to show someone you're going to teach them a lesson. That is litigation. It's also a method of dispute resolution. Some people argue fighting is a method of dispute resolution, but it's
Kuheshimiana,
not.
yes.
Yeah, ati kuheshimiana. Then we have negotiation, where people negotiate. We sit, we have a problem, we just negotiate between the two of you. And then now we have arbitration. Arbitration, it means that you have a judge, but it's a private judge. Literally, in simple English. This person, you meet them, like now there's something called the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, where you apply to get an arbitrator. And then they randomly pick for you someone who is impartial. He doesn't know the two of you, or she doesn't know the two of you. So she listens to your disputes and makes a binding decision that binds the two of you, that so-and-so has won, so-and-so has lost, full stop.
And this is limited to conflict.
It's limited.
Because I was going to ask if an arbitrator can handle a murder case.
I'll come to that. And then there's the mediator. A mediator is now that person who helps parties agree. They don't make decisions. They just help you, they guide you. I mean, sometimes you are so angry at your business partner, you feel like you want to punch them. So the mediator protects you from them and protects them from you and helps you people come up with a conversation that is meaningful. So that is mediation. Now, to the question you're asking about what cases can be mediated.
Wadau, see, I tell you something small about tap send kabla tuendelee na story. Exactly. So tap send is a safe and super fast money remittance application that comes with great exchange rates. Alafu tap send has multiple payment options. You can send directly to bank accounts and you can also send directly to mobile money transfer platforms. Yay! Uko Colorado? Niweke kwa M-Pesa. Tap send has got you covered. And here's more good vibes. There are no hidden charges, no transfer fees. That means the same exact amount of money you see in the app is the same amount of money that the recipient will receive. Alafu, good vibes on top of the good vibes. You get a $30 bonus credit on your first send using tap send if you use our code Wicked Edition. Consider yourself plugged.
To the question you're asking about what cases can be mediated. Number one, all commercial cases will be mediated. You know, muliuziana soda kreti 500, you had brought a whole lorry of maize from Tanzania, something went wrong, they had, I don't know, weevils or something. Those are commercial transactions. So all of those can be mediated as long as the parties are willing. Employment disputes. I mean, you've had a relationship employer-employee for a long time. Employment disputes can be mediated. That's employment and labor disputes, basically. Then family disputes. Family disputes of all kinds, including succession. Those ones can be mediated. Apart from divorce, I'll explain that. You cannot get a divorce from a mediator. It has to be granted by court. However, you can do a mediation agreement on child support and division of matrimonial property. Wewe ndio utaenda na probox, wewe ndio utaenda na ile mahindi iko kwa, and so on and so forth. So the cases that cannot be mediated, number one is defilement. If a horrible human being decides to defile a minor, that is not a conversation for mediation. That's a criminal offense. Murder, to a great extent, there's an exception, I don't want to confuse people, but murder, assault, most of those cases, the rule of thumb is that they cannot be mediated. So people go into other ways of trying to resolve those disputes. And then of course, constitutional interpretation. There are some cases that require the interpretation of the law. Munaangalia hii kesi mnaona, before we even resolve it, we need to understand the law. The judges have to interpret what law is applicable to this. So those ones have to go to litigation. But the bulk of these other cases, especially commercial, employment, and family and civil cases, all of those can be mediated and should be mediated whenever there's an opportunity to mediate them.
When you're mediating a case, what do nikuulize the level of patience you are supposed to have, right?
Yeah.
What are the qualities of a good mediator? Should you be realistic? You understand?
Okay.
As if I was sitting with two people, I want to be realistic. Come on, I would kill this guy. But now let's talk. Like, how realistic should you be? And
I'll start from
the qualities of a mediator.
The starting point is the training. You need to be trained as a mediator. So I run a firm called Kilimani Mediation Center. And one of the things we do is we train people to become mediators. I'm even a trainer of trainers. That's a higher level. So we arrange master classes where we teach people to teach mediation. So, but coming to this basic training, the training that you get in mediation first helps you understand. Because sometimes it's not patience or temperament. Sometimes it's the skills. Mediation is a skill. And one of the skills is reading the room. Let me tell you, one day I went I was called by a couple that had disagreed. And I went to Sagana. They said one person works in Nyeri, the other one works in Nanyuki, Sagana is in the middle. They have no problem fueling my car, I can go there. And I went to Sagana.
They agreed on fueling your car.
Yes.
They agreed on where to meet.
Yes.
But they could not agree on any other thing.
Yes, yes. And it was child support. They were a young couple. And I went to Sagana. And when we sat, I told them about what mediation is all about and the rules for mediation. And I could tell they were not very keen on it. And I was very green in mediation at that point in time. I had not learned to do something called reading the room. And the guy asked for a white cup. I told him, boss, this is a serious process. You can't start drinking now. He said, don't worry. Let me even buy her wine. He took wine. And I said, you know what? What's the worst that can happen? It's a private mediation. If this is their style, boom. Took my cup of tea. But after an hour of just talking about other things, I started realizing that the body language here was very different. All the things we wanted to talk about, child support and why they disagreed and everything, were not making sense. They said, by the way, look, it's becoming dark and we brought you all the way. Why don't we pay for you a place to sleep? And I told them, I may not sleep here. They told me, but you sleep in Sagana. We'll give you money. They put money on my phone. The Kikuyu in me, of course, I didn't sleep in Sagana. I drove well. But what I'm trying to tell you is, by the time it was 6 p.m., it was clear to me. Because they even told me, mediator, take us. We want to book 2 rooms. If we don't get 2 rooms, we'll get one with 2 beds. So I started smiling. Long story short, by the time I was leaving that hotel, they had taken 1 room. The case mediated itself. So when you are taught mediation, when you are trained in mediation, you start learning how to read the room. There are times when people who have a dispute will come, and when you realize they are not even here to fight, they are probably interested in one another, especially if they had a love relationship. So when you're trained in mediation, you start learning those nuances of how to handle such situations.
I feel misled on the moral of that story, but endelea.
There were a couple before. They went separate ways. They have a child together who they've been fighting about child support. If they decide to spend a night together in the same room,
you cannot mediate that.
They might just get another child, which is also a good thing. And they'll agree probably. But as we speak, they are living together. And that child is living under their roof. So the case mediated itself.
I feel like I'm misled on the moral of that story.
No. So what I'm trying to tell you is, so the first thing is training. Because once you understand how to handle a mediation case, then the rest of the things fall in place. I mean, there are people who walk into my office today and I know they are not ready for mediation. Sometimes, again, it's business partners who've just agreed 2 weeks ago. And they are banging tables, and you can tell these people are very angry. You find a way to make it look like you're the one who is too busy and not available. And because they like you and they like your services, they will agree to come back in 2 weeks. It's very difficult for a normal human being to be angry continuously for 2 weeks. So the temperatures go down. Nature has a way of, cooling you down. By the time you come back, it's not the same set of people with the same amount of anger. So, and mediation is powerful, if you allow me to tell you. Up to the year 2025, the judiciary has given to mediators more than 216,000 cases. And these cases have, if you look at today's Nation newspaper, have unlocked back 75 billion into the economy. What people do is you have a dispute, and I tell you, Dr. Kengori utajua mimi ni nani. You will hear from my lawyers. And for sure you hear from my lawyers. But the next thing that happens is when you hear from my lawyers, you have to lawyer up, as they say. You have to lawyer up. So you get a lawyer. So you have two advocates benefiting from your dispute. And within no time, you start getting tired. Because you're told, leo ni pre-trial, kesho ni mention, I don't know, mention number 2, hearing. Sometimes you tend to think people are lawyers because now the language they speak, they even tell you about adjournments and so on and so forth. With time, people become tired of that process. And that's when they realize how superior mediation is. When you hear that mediation has unlocked 75 billion back into the economy, it's people who took each other to court. You're a business, you invested 5 million together, then you don't agree. In fact, what usually happens, people do tenders together. And then the government pays them 20 million. And then they start fighting about how they're going to share. So what do? They go and tell the bank, freeze this money until we agree. So you have 20 million that's not helping either of them because they can't agree on how to split that money. And that case stays in court for how many years? 5 years. So when you hear about money being unlocked back into the economy by mediation, these are some of the things in which it happens. Because I have sat with people, a 39-year-old succession dispute in 39 years. We resolved it in 4 sittings, 4. You sit today, you sit after a week, you sit after the other day, and boom, they have agreed. You ask, did it have to take 39 years in court? So I keep telling people, before you rush to court, go for a mediation, look for a mediator. And beyond that, even companies. If you speak to most banks, actually all banks, they'll tell you, we have a list of our advocates. Choose one. Like you want to go and charge a title, anything, choose one. And every time the bank gets a demand letter, what do banks do? They take that demand letter, they give to their advocate. The advocate reads the demand letter. Zinakuanga na Kiingereza mingi. I also went to school of law. Mutajua. Papa. The advocates put serious English there. The next thing they know, now it's become heated and they are going to court. This is a person who probably used to print checkbooks for the bank for 10 years. Why are you going to court with someone who was printing checkbooks for you for 10 years? So if the banks had mediators on their roll, when you get a demand letter, You don't respond with a demand letter from another advocate. You get a mediator to say, look here, we are sorry. Okay, I think there's a misunderstanding. Can we meet in the boardroom on Thursday in the afternoon? And you probably end up resolving what would have been an acrimonious 5-year battle. I know a bank in this country that uses green as their color, and I will say that because there's more than one bank that uses green, so your guess is as good as mine. Their legal department has got more than 800 files. 800 files. And when you think about 800 files, why do you want to have 800 files? It's because they don't have mediators on their roll. The world is changing, law is changing. Even the judiciary has decided to have mediators attached to them. This is what we call court-accredited mediators. There's only 1,750 of us in a population of 50 million. We have more than 23,000 advocates, but court-accredited mediators are about 1,700. So that tells you there's a huge gap and a demand for mediators. If I indulge you, the Employment and Labor Relations Court has got 336,000 cases as at now. That is actually as at last year, October. I'm sure now they've hit 350,000 cases. That court has 21 judges. That court has got 523 mediators attached to it. So the hope for the Employment and Labor Relations Court is in mediators. It's not even the judges. It would take those judges over 10 years without admitting new cases to resolve those 340,000 cases. So we keep telling people, first is there is an opportunity in mediation. Mimi si wale watu niko na kawivu ati ukiingia kwa profession yangu utasaidika. Come, let's teach you mediation. Let's start there. Let's equip you. And then let's mentor you. And then let's help you through the process of accreditation. Let's help you become a mediator. And let's teach you the nuances of how to even run your own mediation firm. But I can tell you, there's a lot of opportunity in mediation. And mediation restores relationships. Like
explain opportunities first. Like, okay, how automatic is the opportunity? Yes, you mentioned over 300,000 cases, yes, and fewer judges, right? So is this like an option for if someone was to study law, will they go directly to mediation and will they make a career out of it? What does it look like as far as an opportunity is concerned?
Thank you. Let me surprise you. First, a plumber can become a mediator. An engineer can become a mediator. Architects are mediators. I am mentoring a pilot to become a mediator. Nurses have become mediators. Human resource managers. You do not have to be a lawyer to be a mediator. Let us start there. I once mediated a dispute, let me indulge you a bit, where a lady had given birth to a child, a baby boy, and she had gone back and stayed for 1.5 years at home raising this baby boy, until she got street advice from her neighbors who told her, Ati, you lost your uterus giving birth. Do you know how much the hospital can pay you? And she went into a serious litigation with the hospital. And I was sitting with someone in my mediation because it was referred by the courts to me for mediation. And I was sitting with a nurse. She had been a critical care nurse for 20 years. That's when I got to know kuna nurses na kuna critical care nurses. Critical care nurses are usually in the ICU and the HDU, and their training is slightly different and better and so on and so forth. So she was listening and I could tell she was itching to speak. And you know, when you're on mentorship, you don't speak during the mediation. So I broke the rules and I allowed her to speak. And she changed the mediation. She told this lady, you were in which hospital? So the lady said, of course, confidentiality in mediation. And then she said the hospital, she said, that hospital, from where you are sleeping on the bed to that table where they get those things is a number of steps. She can even tell the steps. And she explained that theater so well. And she told this lady, you ruptured an artery that supplies, blood and oxygen to the child, which flows, blood at how many liters per second. So if they had taken time to go look for your husband, and then, you have to be prepared for theater. You don't just go in and sanitize him and so on and so forth, so that he can sign so that they can remove your uterus. You'd have died because of the amount of blood you have lost. So she explained it so deeply, and the lady who had sued the hospital started crying. And the gyna who had operated on her started crying. And they were hugging each other in my office. What I'm trying to say is, as a lawyer, I would have been looking at the cold facts of the law. The law says this, the law says this. And some stupid people who say the law is clear. The law is not clear. Okay, at first degree in law, you can say the law is clear. But when you start on your master's, you realize that the law is not clear. So, and when we were having that conversation, a nurse who had been a critical care nurse for a very long time helped us unlock a dispute that lawyers would not have been able to unlock. I have had architects come to my firm, and they have helped us a lot in construction disputes, and engineers, because it's about interest, it becomes very technical. So I invite everybody from every profession. Mediation is for everybody. Of course, for court annexed mediation, the judiciary expects you to have a first degree in something, because teachers today are helping the judiciary so much with child support cases. Oh yes, I can tell you, if you see a case that requires child support and you see somebody who was a primary school teacher or a high school teacher, give them that case. They help mediate those cases very well. Counseling psychologists are doing very well with family disputes. And we have engineers who are getting a lot of these construction disputes, and architects. So the mediation field is very rich. And by the way, retired judges, where did Justice Maraga go to? Justice Maraga is a mediator today. Justice Muga Apondi, upon retirement, chose to be a mediator. He would have chosen to be an advocate and to litigate and to fight. He chose to be a mediator. There is a huge list of people who have risen to the highest level in terms of their law practice who settled for mediation.
Is it like a career or a side hustle in this context? That's why I ask, how does it look like as far as an opportunity is concerned?
I'll tell you this. I do mediation from 8 to 5. Sikwange TV all the time. I do mediation 8 to 5 every day. I run a firm called Kilimani Mediation Center. And one of the challenges I have, sometimes I have more people walking into my office than I can handle. Why? Because where you live, there's a dry cleaner, there's an M-Pesa. Have you ever been to your area and found a person who runs a mediation practice? I can tell you there is none, because when we started Kilimani Mediation Center, there was no other firm doing mediation. I told you there is 1.8 million cases stuck up in court as of October last year. Saisi juzi kongapi, maybe 2 million. And the judges don't know what to do with them. So there's court annexed where they are giving the mediators who are attached to them. But most of you know the CEO of a company near you, or you know a family near you, and you keep laughing, wale wamepigania mashamba hawajaisaidika. Those are people who need help. Once you even do a poster on your status, WhatsApp status too, weke hapo seme Dr. Kengori, certified professional mediator. People start reaching out to you as a certified professional mediator. When you put it now on your socials and start advertising, and I can name people I have helped who came to my firm. One has gone to, Bondo, and she has settled there permanently. And people are walking to her farm and saying, niko na hii kesi iko kotini 17 years, and she's resolving in 3 days. People now are telling everybody about her. She's doing very well in Bondo, and we are very happy because we mentored her. I can tell you for free. This is
give
a
her a
blue
shout
ocean.
to your Apate clients.
Yes?
Oh, give her a
yes.
shout to the Apate clients.
Her name is Ann Babu Owino. I'll try to remember the name of her farm, and I will share with everybody. If you're in Bondo, reach out to us. We will hook you up with Ann Babu Owino. She's taken that side, and she's doing very well on that side.
That's a good
and
Babu
I happen to be the chairman of the Association of Certified Mediators. If I give you the profile of our mediators, some are bishops, some are pastors, some are architects, some are pilots, some are engineers, these people have good CVs. Even doctors, PhD holders. So they are mediators. So I'm telling people, mediation is not a side hustle. When you hear 1.7 million cases, even if you were to resolve 2 cases per day, at the end of the year, you'd only resolve 700. Hizo zingine millions zitaenda.
That's fine. So first, Basi, take us through. How do you, like, is the court just open for you to just walk up useme nipatie any case out of this, I go and solve and I get paid? How do I get paid? How do I get to the level that I can be accredited by the court? And I want to know like the business model of a mediator.
Perfect. Number one, let's start here. If you want to start private mediation, come to us. In fact, next week, Monday to Friday, that's the 3rd to the 7th of February, we have a training. Now, this is the interesting thing. For you to become a certified professional mediator, it's a 40-hour training. Tunaanzana nawe Monday morning, tunamalizana nawe Friday. That's the entry course. So not unless I don't know any other professional course you can do.
1 week.
Within a week.
That's 1 week of training.
Yes.
Monday to Friday.
That makes you a certified professional mediator.
Okay.
You become a certified professional mediator. That's the basic entry training. Of course, with time, you'll do specialized trainings like mediating banking and financial disputes is something on its own. Insurance disputes is something on its own. International mediation, something I have done, it's on its own. Training of trainers in mediation is something of its own. So basically, there will be other small sub-courses within. But the basic entry course that you can do and start mediating disputes, you get your certificate on Friday evening or Saturday morning, is 1 week. So I tell people, invest in this 1 week. If you can, invest in this 1 week. And then thereafter, there is a 90-day mentorship for those who want to become court-accredited mediators. Now, if you want to do mediation generally, a first degree is not a must. If you just want to be mediating disputes even where you are, whether they are private or commercial, or for companies or for families, that you can do. But if you're looking at being accredited by the courts, then they will insist on a first degree. You need to have a first degree in something, in teaching, in medicine, in whatever, but have a first degree for court annexed mediation.
Let me be the devil's advocate. Kwa the haters that are watching, wanauliza, how do we know the balance between, hapa kuna opportunity mingi, Fanya Mambo cannot do by himself, ama Fanya Mambo is in business, a mediation course?
No, I'll tell you this.
Yes.
Go and look at today's newspaper, the Daily Nation, page 10. It states there that there's already cases worth 1.1 trillion stuck up in court. And the judges cannot handle them. In fact, there's a whole paragraph saying that the Chief Justice is recommending that these cases be taken to mediation. Over 15,000 cases being taken to mediation, we are only 1,700 mediators. You know, there are courses before you don't even need scientific research. I challenge you, today is the 29th of January, 2025. Go and look for the Daily Nation. Just buy a copy, it's 60 bob, go to page 10. When you understand the magnitude of what is there, then you will believe what I am telling you. That this judiciary is actually overwhelmed by the number of cases.
Page 10 of the Daily Nation, 29th January 2025.
Yeah.
And the story is on page 10.
Yes, it's a whole page.
Over 389 billion tied up in commercial court cases.
Yes. Now,
sawa.
Yes.
Daily Nation, 29th January 2025. So it's a very easy question. 389 billion, okay? Yes. What is your route? Naongelea mtu mwenye ako pale home. Si tunaongea employment, people are struggling with employment.
Yes.
How do you get a piece of that?
I'll tell you. Number one.
Take us through the process, the
number
cost,
one,
and need training.
Okay, so once you've done through the training is not expensive, based because of what you get. If you come for a physical class, it will cost you 45,000 for the week. If you come for a virtual class, it will cost you 30,000 for the week. And then you get a certificate. And then that now allows you to start mediating disputes. And I tell people, how does the judiciary arrive at 389 billion? If you speak to your neighbor today, kuna plot aliuziwa, Kamakis, Broti Magutama, you know how they advertised. And then that plot had been sold to 3 people. When you ask, the plot is worth 1.5 million. That is what has been forked out by maybe the two buyers who bought that piece of land. That dispute is worth 1.5 million. And so when you're having a conversation around it, people are willing to pay you if you can resolve and unlock for them because this is 1.5 million locked. You can't use that land and you can't use that money. You don't have it. You have two business partners who invested 5 million in a company, and then they started fighting and it's been frozen and they can't access that 5 million. That dispute is worth 5 million, and that 5 million is not circulating in the economy. So the process is, once you've been trained, you can start mediating private disputes. And the judiciary has made things very easy. Kuna kitu inaitwa shortcut judgment. Unajua 2025, sitaki kuwafundisha kila kitu, but let me tell you this. If today you meet two people who are in a dispute,
yes,
before they even go to court, you can sit them down and tell them, you're fighting over 5 million. How do you want to go about resolving this dispute of 5 million? And you agree in bullet forms on how they want to go about it. And that is called a private mediation settlement agreement, which you are allowed to do. Then once we do this private mediation settlement agreement, you get a court accredited mediator because you have to use their mediation number. And we file this thing in court as a settlement agreement. Once you file it in court, it is treated as a binding judgment of the court. And it is therefore enforceable by the court. So I tell people, do you want to go to court for 5 years to get a ruling? Or would you rather come and sit down at a mediation table, agree, and file what you've agreed in court, and it will carry the weight of judgment?
What you make it sound so easy.
It is easy.
You make it sound so easy because what if the parties in conflict have, and I'm sure you've experienced this, want to enjoy the anger. Want to experience their anger. Nataka hasira yangu ni maximize. Like sometimes people are in conflict to punish the other party. They're not even willing to come to the table, which would explain why there are billions tied up. Like, how easy is it to bring two warring parties?
I have always told people, the Kikuyus have two sayings. One, they say, baptism is given to those people who have confessed their sins. Sometimes you don't come and tell somebody you have to get saved. It's a conviction. There are people who are not ready for mediation. That I'll tell you for free. And when they want to go to court, allow them to go to court. That now brings the second saying in my community, which says, the person chasing and the person being chased, you will both pant. Do you know, if you and I tukianza kukimbishana nawe hapa Kengori, tukimbishane 100 meters, by the time we are done with 100 meters, people will find us holding our knees. You are there, I'm there. Then they're asking who was chasing and who was being chased. That is what happens. So I tell people, you want to go to court? Go. Court ilijengewa watu kama nyinyi, but I promise you, 3.5 years down the line, you have not seen judgment. You've been paying advocates. That's when you come and say, hey, nimechoka. And you're the one who took somebody to court to punish them. You first punish yourself. Because in fact, before you even punish them, you have to lawyer up, as they say. You will not be able to file that matter in court yourself. So you first pay a lawyer. They take the matter to court for you. Then the first thing they tell you now, kuna mention, you pay. Kuna mention ingine, kuna hearing. You keep paying, and then it's been adjourned. The judge is in a conference in Mombasa. You'll hear all sorts of things. By the time you're doing 5 years, the 1 million you're fighting for, you still don't have it.
In an ideal situation.
So what I usually say, get people who are ready for mediation. And there are many, especially people who have fought in court. Those ones are usually ready. Or a company that has had very many cases in court will tell you, hey, we have looked at our bill on advocates and we feel we want to try mediation. And when people come to you and say, we are ready for mediation, for sure they are usually ready for mediation. So you help them reduce it to an agreement and file in court.
Let me be simple-minded again, right? I go back to opportunity, right? You call the 45,000 an investment,
yes,
right?
Yes.
But then again, this is basic mediation.
Yes.
You'll need, for court accreditation, you'll need to go in for 90 days, okay?
That's just mentorship now.
That's
mentorship means you're with us. We are handling cases with you. You're gaining experience.
Are there other organizations offering the services, the training?
Yes, there are other companies that offer training.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So now, once you are court accredited,
Yes.
how do I make a living now? Like, yes,
Oh,
nimeenda,
good.
nikaona kuna 389 billion. I'm court accredited.
Yes.
How do I now, like what's the business model like for me?
Oh,
Let me
very
give
simple.
it 90 days and a week. I'm court accredited.
Yes.
How
Good.
do I make a living?
If, say, for example, you started your training tomorrow and you finished and we went through mentorship and you became accredited.
Yes.
That is the story of Anne Babu Owino, who, once she finished, between the month of August when she was accredited and December 2024, I like talking of people I can refer you to. She had received 17 cases from the judiciary.
Oh, the judiciary can also send cases to you?
No, they can't. They call you. They usually call you and tell you, Dr. Kingori, we have seen you're an accredited mediator. We have a commercial dispute. Are you able to handle it? If you say yes, they send you an email. And they tell you, contact the parties. And you set up a mediation meeting. When you finish that one case, the judiciary will give you 20,000 shillings for that one case. If you do 10 cases that month, they'll give you 200,000. Disclaimer, it's government. They don't pay you immediately. So don't go there saying, I've done, pay me for this month so that I can do for next month. Just so count it as income for the year. Utasema hii mwaka nimefanya 10 cases or 15 or 20 or 70. Then you will know you've made money for 70 cases within the year. But it will pay you the way government pays, painfully.
So the judiciary, if the judiciary refers a case to you, it's not the parties that pay you.
The judiciary,
judiciary pays you.
In fact, they give you a badge. They give you a badge written there, Fanya Mambo Kinuthia, mediator number this of this year, and it has the judiciary logo on it because it's a badge you even show people. So now you're a servant of the court. You're a servant of the court, but you're based outside. You are external. You don't report there. You're just helping the court resolve their disputes.
Now, how? Okay. Let me go into the mathematics. Let me now go into the mind of someone who knows, like, let's say I'm accredited, now I need the job. Like, will you have a constant stream of cases? It is up to you based on capacity, or the judiciary will contact you at their wakijisikia, waone wamechoka sana. Like, if Fanya Mambo Kinuthia is an accredited if you can handle 50 cases in a month.
Yes.
Will they give you 50 cases in a month? Ama you may need to go place niligro embu tulikuwa nasema kurandura, like going to hustle for cases.
No, actually, what has been happening over the year, the judiciary was giving the cases to us. Now they have a smart system. They have a smart system that distributes cases, I would say, fairly to the mediators. So you wake up one morning and the system has sent you a case. It's working, it's been programmed to work smartly. But I keep telling people, let the motivation not be the judiciary cases, because now Kenyans are looking to be lazy. Let me use that word. Because you want to sit there and you want the judiciary to give you cases. I was once given a case between an employer and one of the banks in this country. I handled that case, I would say, so well that bank actually called me. And they have given me so many of their cases now. And those ones I don't get paid 20,000. Because you bill them properly. It's a professional fee, it's a professional job. The judiciary cases are good for you, but they are not everything. Because regardless, I once did a succession dispute where the family was fighting for property worth of about 850 million. I was still paid 20,000. If I was doing that as a private mediator, I would have taken home a good amount of money. So I keep telling people, there is no excuse for laziness. There are people who would want this automatic thing that sits and works for you. Once in a while, you'll get cases from the judiciary. But you can't be working for this 20,000. And also, there's a lot of limitation in terms of resources. The judiciary does not have that much money. So sometimes you will be frustrated if that's your only hope. So I tell people, as we speak, the cases are not so much with the judiciary. They are with people you know. Move to the next petrol station near you. I can tell you there's a conflict that involves that. They have a case in court. Most businesses, if they have a turnover of 10 million and above, they have a case or two in court. Just talk to them. Advertise yourself on your social media platforms. You'll never even need to suck up to anybody. But then me, my judiciary cases find me in the course of, because I'm aggressive. I am out there. I am making people know that I do mediation. So you also have to take initiative that after the training and everything, zitakupata, the judiciary cases will find you there. But you can't bank on those as being the only things if you want to be a successful mediator.
For purposes of this conversation, let me be an advocate of the lazy person.
Yes.
So it's a guarantee that once I go to classes and then I do mentorship, at least I can count on at least kesi tatu za judiciary nirudishe pesa ya training, alafu ninaweza tulia kiumane nikuwe bado mimi ni mediator. Is there an expiry date for a mediator? That's what I'm asking now.
Every year we renew our membership with the judiciary. And the reason we do that is they want to see your professional development in the year. There are people who are like wheelbarrows again. You leave them here, you'll find them there. I have mentored people who did their training in 2017, but they have not found it necessary to be mentored in mediation. They've not even been accredited up to now. And there are people who joined me, and within 2.5 months, they had their interviews. They didn't even wait for the 3 months. And they go for the interviews and they perform so well, and the judiciary accredits them, and those people start getting cases. Before you know, that person has done research, ameingia kwa newspaper, ameingia kwa registry, ameongea na watu, amejua mahali cases kuna flooding, amejua kwa hali kuna few mediators, ameenda Bondo amejipanga. Mwingine ameenda amejipanga Kirinyaga. And then there's someone sitting in Nairobi comfortably and saying, judiciary is not giving me cases. I have said these things come to people who take initiative. Somebody once told me that if the wealth that is in Kenya was all sold and distributed equally to everybody, after 10 years, those who were rich will be rich and those who were poor will be poor. Because if you have a mentality of laziness, then this thing is not for you. But if the opportunities are there, I can tell you, they are immense. If you look at today's paper, the cases are crazy. But again, there's no formula that is for you to get those cases. Find wisdom, find reason, find a way to start knowing who are these who are filing these matters in court. And how do you even start talking to advocates? I have told people, if you have an advocate who is a friend of yours, ask that advocate friend of yours, maybe hata mlisoma naye high school. Unamwambia, wakili, ni cases gani unaweza nirushia nifanye mediation? And many wakilis are very benevolent people. They'll tell you, by the way, hii sionangi kwa nini wako kotini, na hii. They give you 4 files. So work is there, but it is available for people who want to take initiative.
So I take it that for the cases that the judiciary hands to you, the judiciary pays.
Yes.
For the cases that you do privately, for the cases zenye umejituma, the parties who are in conflict are supposed to pay you.
Yes.
So tungangania 1 million, alafu unakuja unataka kuongeza ile pesa mnangangania, mnaweza niongeza ingine niwasaidie kupata. How is that even a conversation?
Because there's an alternative. The alternative is you get a lawyer, you sue this guy who owes you $1 million. And then you go to court for 3 years. And then you tell me which one will be cheaper. So people prefer, get a mediator. Any day. It is the cheapest method of dispute resolution. And it is confidential.
What does cheap mean?
I'll tell you this. Number one, most of the times, the cost of mediation is 1/3 the cost of litigation. Litigation is the process of going to court. So mediation is 1/3 of that cost. So if you go to a place where, I talk to people who are trying to fight for child custody, and they tell me what I have spent is actually 1/3 of what all my friends who've gone through the kawaida litigation process have spent. Because we sit down, we agree on the fees before. There are no surprises. And then it's not dependent. You know, like even when your advocate is really good, there is an issue of the court's calendar. You know, you never go to a court, you never go to Milimani Commercial Court knowing when the next mention will be or when the hearing will be. But when you come for mediation, you know when the next case will be. In fact, you agree. You can even say 8 p.m. on Saturday, 8 p.m. That you can't do with our courts.
I know you'll agree with me that in Kenya, if you see a system not working, there is someone benefiting. I can guarantee you that there is someone benefiting from a case going on, dragging in court. And this is a strategy I've had. Someone can swindle you out of your money, sindio? Ndio uende kotini, mvurutane for 20 years. They would have enjoyed your, kama ni shamba for example, we umeenda, kama ni profits ametengeneza. So this person has no interest whatsoever for this case to be solved. And that's just one example, right? How is, what are some, okay, I think I'm right actually. In an ideal situation, if mediation, if people pick up this, right? We have so many people who would actually sign up for this, right? So in an ideal situation, if this catches on, it means technically, for a greater extent, the need for lawyers reduces. Ukweli wongo?
No, it doesn't reduce at all. It doesn't reduce at all. You see, there are things that people need to understand. And the first one is constitutional cases, constitutional petitions can never be mediated. Child defilement cases can never be mediated. Assault occasioning grievous bodily harm. There are so many cases that cannot be mediated. Cases of police abusing their powers, for example, are very hard to mediate. They have to go to IPOA and then to court and so on and so forth. And those cases have to be handled by advocates in court. Election petitions, some of them can be mediated, some cannot be mediated. So the demand for lawyers will always be there. I think what mediation is doing is looking at those cases that are in court that should not have been in court. I mean, a dispute between you and your employer, most of the times is usually about the money. If you have been suspended and procedurally, you're claiming some money from the employer. And the employer is feeling, I can give you half of this money, but not the full amount you're asking for. And in mediation, you can be able to settle that. So I would say this method of dispute resolution is one of the many, but it is the most superior. So I've always told people, it's not like muarubaine, ukikunywa utapona magonjwa yote. No. I have handled a case of a hospital here in Nairobi. One of the leading hospitals in the city that has a case where they're supposed to compensate somebody 11 million for an accident that happened in that hospital. And that hospital, the advocates told me in private, clearly, you know what, we prefer that this matter stays in court. Because the idea is to refuse to pay or to delay payment for as long as they can. Those ones will be there. And that's why those cases must go to court so that a judge makes a ruling and it's final. But there are people who are tired. There are people who even have called me today and they said, we have a case of this nature. Please help us to just come up with an agreement. I want to pay. And I can tell you, 80% of Kenyans are good people.
Okay.
Wanaharibiwa na aka 20% Kenya tu wakora hivi wenye wataki kulipa.
Okay. Yeah. Sawa. Other than, in terms of lessons, other than the fact that ukipata kesi ya watu wawili wamejifunika blanketi moja usiingilie, what other lessons have you learned about conflict?
Many lessons. And one of them is the curve. There is a time when you don't mediate. Sometimes when emotions are too high, you don't mediate. You allow for them to cool down. You allow for tempers to go down. There are times also when it's very opportune time to mediate, so you need to know.
You can't strike when the iron is hot.
Yes, reading the room, getting to know when to say what and when not to say what. Also, body language. If your mouth is saying yes, but your head is doing like this, yes, no, then I will not listen to you. I'll look at your body language. The body language speaks more volumes than does the language of the mouth. So as an experienced mediator, you get to learn what to look at and what to do. And also you get to the root of the problem. I had mediation when I was very fairly new in the space. And it was a family mediation. And the wife was talking of how the area has become insecure and how thieves have become too many and how their neighbor lost a pro box and how the husband is coming late and why that is very dangerous for the family. And I was foolish to keep dwelling on how the neighbor's pro box was stolen and how the area has become insecure and so on and so forth. But then there's something called a caucus, where you now meet each party separately first to get to hear what it is that is really going down. And the wife had no problem with the neighbor's pro box. In fact, aliniambia hata zikiibiwa 10, she doesn't care. It was an issue of she was feeling insecure. Huyu husband akitoka job because he was coming from a bank. Where does he pass by so that he gets home by 11? Does he have another girlfriend? Is he seeing someone else? Is he having infidelity issues and so on and so forth? So mediation teaches you how to learn about the root cause. Like you see this table, if it was in the soil, you don't see all these other parts. You see what is presented to you. And sometimes if you're a very green mediator, you keep dealing with what people are saying. After sometimes when you realize, how stupid was I to not have known that this tree has got roots and the problem is in the roots. And once you resolve the problem that's in the roots, definitely you've resolved the dispute for the parties.
You mentioned child disputes a lot, right? And now that you mentioned roots, right? What can you tell people about disagreement over children?
Right? Oh, awesome. Many things I have learned and many things that I wish people could apply. Number one, never fight about children. Never, never, never. Do not allow your fights. There are people who've used children as shields. Don't allow that to happen. Try as much as possible to even when two people are fighting, imagine unajuanga nani kati yenyu is a good father or a good mother. Like you can find a woman telling you, my husband, but privately, when he's there, she'll never say, I don't know why that happens. But tell you, my husband, even if I died today, he would take care of my children. He's a good guy as a father, but he's a horrible husband. But when the husband is there, she doesn't like to tell him he's a good husband. And I have seen that again. So if he's a good husband and you're an irresponsible wife, for example, let him stay with the kids. Be the person who will be coming to do child visitation. If you're a good mother and you, the husband, unajijua we tu ni kinyangarika, don't disturb her. Let her stay with the kids. Be the person who will be coming to do child visitation and agree on a plan. My take from mediation any day is find a way that works for the children. Children like stability. Just do something that works for them, not for yourselves, and make them happy, and you will be successful, but don't fight over them. It's never necessary.
So in terms of your experience in solving children's dispute and looking at the root, what is the underlying thing that you notice from people who create conflict about children?
The hidden
You see,
thing. First and foremost, every marriage breaks down because of something very different. Some break down because of money. Some break down because of infidelity. Some break down because of in-laws. So usually children are they find themselves moving around because there's conflict in their parents, which may have been caused by money or infidelity or in-laws or whatever reason, So, and by the way, I have never been an expert on children issues. It's just that I do them and I do them with a lot of love. I have always done more of commercial disputes. I've always done more of company disputes. I've always done more of employment disputes and so on and so forth. And succession. Succession where somebody died and then it's the property of the dead deceased that we are discussing. But where once in a while, yes, I do the child disputes. And I usually say child support can be agreed upon out of court. You don't have to go to court to agree on child support.
I was asking sana in terms of body language because it's such a big deal. If someone can come out and privately tell you that they know the husband or the wife has the best interest of the kid, but they just want to frustrate.
Yes, they do that. There are people who come to hit at the other one, but they hide behind the children. Especially if a woman realizes that as a man you love your children so much, especially some of us have weaknesses because we love our daughters so much and it is manifest. They will use that daughter as a shield. They'll keep telling you, I can take this girl to a boarding school. Na sasa mtoto kwa standard 3, I can, because they want you to react. They want to hit at you because they know that's a soft spot for you. And sometimes I have told men, what has she said to you? She said she's going to take the children, you will never see them again. And you just tell her, take the children. And then tell her you'll pay fees. Take them, call me anytime you need fees. Usually if you let her go with those children for 3 months, 4 months, they are the ones who start saying tunataka kuona daddy. So
and this goes both ways.
Yes, goes both ways. Even if the guy insists on having the children, especially if he's not an abusive parent, if he's a caring parent, let him keep the kids. If you died, who would be left taking care of those children? That's what I usually tell people. Ask yourself, who would be left taking care of those children? It would be that spouse, so let them be.
Oh, so that's part of the strategy,
yes.
Like creating the worst case scenario for them, and then you allow them to view it from that perspective.
You've already done mediation classes. There's something called, I need to remember the exact words, but it's, yes, worst alternative to a negotiated agreement. Yeah, worst alternative to a negotiated agreement. Like right now, you see what's happening in Goma. If I was President Ruto and I was meeting this Tshisekedi guy and Kagame guy and so on, and they start telling you or playing games on, you just need to switch on the TV and show them what's happening on TV. You tell them, so it's either an agreement or bodies like that, or displacements like that. And someone like Kagame may not feel it because it's not happening on his soil. So there's no urgency on his part to mediate this particular conflict. But for Tshisekedi, it's happening on their soil. So there's an urgency to resolve it. It's happening to their women and children and their population, and they are losing lives in their country. And the occupation is happening in his country. So it's a very difficult situation. But yes, that's the best way to go about it.
Have you succeeded in all the cases you've taken up in mediation?
No. I usually tell people no. You see, first you need to realize, and that's one of the things that you do when you're being trained to become a professional mediator, is you realize that this is not your conflict. You have to keep reminding yourself it's not your conflict. I have seen mediators who come, it has failed and they are beating themselves up. Mi nimeshindwa, nimefail kuwafanya wa agree. No, it's their conflict. They may choose never to agree. You can't kill yourself that they did not agree.
Who pays me for trying?
I keep asking people, if you, and you have seen this every day, if you go to a hospital, any hospital here in Nairobi or wherever, Kakamega, Kisumu, wherever, and you have a patient and they die, do you pay the doctor?
They will not allow you to even enter without paying.
Yeah, can you even remove the body? It's the same thing. If I have mediated your dispute and it failed, you still pay me for my services. It's you who did not agree. It's not me who failed as a mediator. So I always tell people, be encouraged. If a teacher teaches your child and your child gets a D minus, do you pay the teacher? You still pay the teacher a salary. I mean, the teacher has taught. The problem was in your child's brain. That much we cannot help. So unfortunately, it's the way of life.
Okay.
If I give you a ride in my Uber, if I had an Uber today and I give you a ride, and I move you from Upper Hill to Ngong Road, and then you find the meeting was cancelled, are you going to say, I'm not going to pay because my meeting was cancelled? No, the taxi guy took you to the place you wanted to be taken to. As to whether you succeeded or not, he did his job. You can't tell him, your meeting imekansoliwa stalipa. That's when you know he has spent fuel. So mediators are the same. You've incurred an expense to make them try to agree. And to the extent that they didn't agree, you are not to blame.
To the extent that
they don't agree, you're not to blame. So
as a mediator, when do you know when to give up?
Most of the times we don't even give
because
up.
Either way you will get paid.
Most of the times they don't give up. Sometimes they even walk away. Sometimes they refuse to come to the next meeting. So that's why sometimes, as we put you through the training, you learn that they need to pay up before. Some amount has to be paid before we start the process. Yeah. It's a professional undertaking, so some amount you'll pay before the process.
It's a good thing that umesema kuna kampuni zingine zina offer the services,
yes.
But for those people interested in being trained by your organization, how do they reach out?
Okay, we are called Kilimani Mediation Center, and I can say we take pride in being the best. And I'm not saying that because it's my company, but we are. We are based on many. In fact, if you just go to Google Maps and look for Kilimani Mediation Center, you'll find us. Our number is 0746 859 046. 0746 859 046. Anytime we'll take you through the class, take you through the mentorship, just guide you into a career in mediation. And I can tell you, there's a lot of work to be done. Na isi ile ya uongo. to be honest, before God and man, there's a lot of work to be done in mediation. You just need to come and we open your eyes. But we are not telling you that the job is lying on a table, just go pick. No. We are telling you that if you knock this door and this door and this door, and it's not tedious, you're meeting someone who's already tired of a case and they wish they can get it off their shoulder. In fact, they see you, they feel like they want to hug you.
Okay.
So opportunities are there, but they are there for those people who will be willing to take just that little effort and you will get them. Sometimes that little effort just means posting on your social media accounts that you do mediation.
And as far as training is concerned, is it open for Kenyans outside the country?
Yes, because it's both physical and virtual. So wherever you are and you want to join up our class, we will take you through the class, we will help you, and you will become a court-accredited mediator.
If you're court-accredited in Kenya and you're in the diaspora, say US, Canada, wherever, can you practice there? Like let's say, for example, we have 2 Kenyans in the US, ama a Kenyan in the US and another in Kenya wako na kesi. Can you mediate like kesi, mumalizie kesi huko kwa Trump?
First, what you're doing is the basic training in mediation. So as I said, with time, like once you finish the basic training in mediation, okay, one of the qualifications for you to do international mediation. Like I am an internationally accredited mediator with IMI, International Mediation Institute. It's based in The Hague, Netherlands. And I was also trained by ADR Center of Italy as an international mediator. So now what we do, one of the qualifications is you need to have done the basic, because they're not starting from the basic. So your certificate helps you. In fact, when you're in the US or in Canada or wherever you are, it's a very good thing because now you go online and we tell you which international organizations to go into. Now they take you through international mediation because you will need that. Most of the businesses are happening cross-border. So you will need that now training, and then now you can domesticate your training for your particular country and you can practice there.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Asante sana. Na ukimaliza kesi, have you ever, tukifunga, have you ever finished a case and then people disagreed afresh? Like, do they use the principles of mediation yenye ilikuwa kitambo?
Yes. Let me excite you. There's something we usually call a third party in mediation, or a spoiler. I mediated a case of people who were running a small airline here in Nairobi. That can only be Wilson, but there are many. So they were running a small airline here in Nairobi. And this guy was a white man. And by the way, we agreed on everything at the mediation table. But as life would have it, the people from the West, the Europeans have a way they relate with their spouses that we don't. So he goes home and tells the wife how successful a mediation session we've had. And the wife tells him, how stupid are you? You agreed to such terms of blah, 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 blah. We were supposed to sign the following morning at 10. 10 gets, and this is a guy who always kept signing. He never came. And by 2, we had given up. When he called at 3, he said, my wife said that those terms are bullshit. Those are the words he used. And so the mediation died. Then, of course, I learned a new lesson. We agree now, we sign now. And we file now if possible. Yeah, me usually, if we agree at 3 p.m., I'll be checking my time because I want us to sign and I immediately make sure it's filed in court same day. Then now if he goes to consult his wife and he's told he's foolish, we tell the wife now, it's got the stamp of the court. What do you think? Because honestly, there was nothing fundamentally wrong with the contract. But she felt she had not been consulted well enough, or maybe she had not been called sweetheart and honey and baby for long, and she needed to be babied. And because my husband was not in the mood to tell her sweetheart and baby and honey, I think she decided to tell him it's a bullshit contract, because those are the words that were used. And it had taken us a whole month to arrive at that contract. So we have spoilers in mediation, it happens. So yes, we've had interesting experiences. Very interesting. Some are even laughable.
So if the and don't you have cases of people now coming back to say they not vile in court people wanarukanga their witness statement? Do you have people who now they disown their agreement that you made?
That will happen once in a while. It's normal. Human beings do all things that other human beings have done in the past. So it's normal. It happens. And When it happens to you as a mediator, it's a low moment, but you take it in stride, in pride, and you're like, okay, yeah. But most of the times now, because of the filing procedures, you just tell them, go to court and say you have changed your mind after it's been filed, which is usually very difficult.
Okay.
Yeah.
Asante sana. I hope this goes out to wale watu wanatafuta opportunity. I believe my interest in this conversation, and I believe it would have been, it is of value to you to look at it from an opportunity perspective and also as a problem solving mechanism. If you have an issue yenye umekuwa ukideal nayo, you unaweza consider mediation as a course of action. Asante sana Fanya Mambo for making time for us.
Thank you.
I trust this was worth the time of our audience.
Thank you.
Asante.